In life, we have moments of time to prove who we are in the world. When we are vile and villain in other people's lives, we don't go on in life the way the Lord has planned for us. Every soul the Lord has planned a life for. Every soul the Lord has planned a righteous life. A righteous life means a life of lessons, a life of love, a life of promise, a life of prosperity. But children get impacted by other people. They literally get influenced by the people around their lives. People get the inklings of doing something loving and kind for other people, whether it be their family members that they really spend regular, everyday, almost time with, either on the phone or in person, or whether it be a total stranger who they see on the street corner that looks like they might need help. The Lord helps people who help others. In my life, I have been in a position of having money, of security, meaning that my family was able to live comfortably enough to produce a sheltered place to live, food on the table, and a Friday of family time with my Japanese spouse and Japanese son to go out shopping or seeing a movie. It wasn't rich life, it was just a modest life, a life that was planned to care for our family, to produce relationship time, to make sure that technology was always off when we were together. When my son would be put in any automobile from the time he was age 8 when I came on board to the time that he literally was 28 and left my family to go on to his own life, he would fall asleep. It was sort of a sweet innocence about him. He went through a lot of struggles in this land, is true, but he produced himself a very native-like language capability in his mouth. He wasn't as able as his mom, who was older, more seasoned, and a more mature brain, to take on all the English in terms of reading and writing that she could accomplish. In difference, her mouth was not as easily native-like because she was learning she was learning English so much later in her life. Her mouth had already been formed with the accent of her nation and her land. We have many people here who are like that, who are brilliant in their minds, but their accent is from a foreign land. The difference, however, between those people who come here legally, lawfully, through education or marriage or other means of birth, and have that still native accent, and those who come here illegally, immorally, and illicitly, is huge. The difference is those who come here lawfully want to do everything legally. They want to do everything they can to follow the rules as they are able to understand, as they are able to research, as they are able to be guided in a way that makes sense to their lives here. Those who want to walk across the border, come across through illicit ship, come through illegal uses of vehicles that literally almost kill and suffocate people, and in some cases do, is outlandish. The people that think they should be paid to bring those people in that way are also immoral and illegal in their minds. They want to help people escape poverty, sure, but they can do that in their own lands by rising up, forming groups, forming communities, forming villages that feed each other and openly take in food from foreign lands. When we do that, we are in good keeping with the Lord. When we lie, steal, and cheat our way into people's lives, thinking we have rights to take over their legal name, thinking we have rights to take over their legal property, thinking we have rights to steal them away from technology, or to literally borrow their technology on their phone without actually getting their permission as adults and mature citizens of America, we are violating God's laws. You see, God's laws are pretty straightforward. We don't kill the soul of an individual that the Lord creates. We don't steal from people is also one of the Lord's tenets. As a lay pastor, I have seen this quite a lot, having worked a little bit in public education, that children start to lose life, start to lose their soul about the 6th and 7th grade. They do this because of difficulties in their home. They do this because of ill will in their minds. They do this because they don't know how to protect their own boundaries from people, and they do this because they are outlandish in what they feel their rights are to do in other people's lives. We don't teach the celebration of the soul. We teach people that if they're lovely on the outside, then they might get help. If they're good in their minds, they might succeed. But for children who have a different skill set, for children who don't have the brilliance of mind because of whatever genetics they have, or whatever upbringing they've gone through, or whatever lack of educational training they got in the toddler years, we don't have a good program. We do have options programs that exist to help the child that doesn't succeed socially. But it really doesn't help them succeed socially because those programs are so small and so catering to their special needs that they don't necessarily get what's the most important thing in life. What's most important in life is how a person is regarded in the land. We are not teaching people to regard others. We are teaching people that it's okay for them to disregard a human life. We're teaching people through law enforcement and other military tactics of training those military to be submissive to an authority that they are not valued for the soul and spirit they are until they are broken down and rebuilt. Well, that's sort of the Lord's way too, but it's not the same. In life, we have moments of time to love on a human being, to see a person in need seated outside of a place, utilizing free technology, free energy, free electricity, because they have been a long-time customer or client of that particular place. But in a moment of time, they might not have money to spend, or in a moment of time, they might have lost a job, or in a moment of time, they might be without food, and yet you stand there from the sidelines saying, "That's not me, thank God." But you don't actually praise the Lord and say, "Lord, I see a person in this moment in need. What should I be doing to prove that I am in the house of the Lord, that I can love a person despite not knowing them well, that I can be kind and generous even if it's only spending a mere dollar? What is it that I should do, Lord, to help this person if I'm noticing and my soul is feeling that inkling that I'm supposed to do something?" People don't ask that question enough, is absolute truth. I've gotten interesting stares from men of wealth. I've gotten weird looks from women of wildly ways. But the truth is, everyone sort of mocks the homeless. They think, oh, they're just lazy, or oh, they've got a vice problem, or oh, they just don't try hard enough. And that is not true. We live in a technological land, and if a homeless person doesn't have a safe place to bed themselves, to sleep well, their mind cannot function as well. If that homeless person is not eating healthily enough, their mind does not function as well. We know this with the rearing of children, that children in life need basically 7 to 8 hours of actual sleep. Scientific studies have proven this. We also know that adults can function on 5 to 9 or 10 hours of sleep, and that every human life has a different level of sleep pattern that they must produce for a functioning, healthy mind. We know these things. So that's the foundation. That we don't have enough shelters for single people is absolute truth. Yet we build these amazing hotels that really sit empty for months on end sometimes, only to hit peak season where they make back all the lost profits. How hard is it for some loving organization to say, we would like to procure a hotel room for a person for 1 month's time? Because what we've decided to do is that we know that 1 month at a reasonable long-stay hotel is roughly $1,500. So what we've decided to do is ask 15 to 30 people to give $50 to $100 in a simple gift that we can combine together in order to produce a place for a person to literally have a place to prepare themselves for the day, to watch television, to relax, to utilize possibly a free telephone, to make local calls to job opportunities and other possible networking contacts in the community to produce for themselves new revenue, new employment. And at the same time, at most of those places, they offer a free breakfast that usually doesn't mind if you take 1 or 2 extra biscuits or whatnot for a later lunch. They are like that. They want you to have a hearty meal so that your business day goes well. People who are of educated background know that you don't overdo it, that you don't take 3 platefuls to your room, that you simply take a little extra so that you have something to snack on later at lunchtime or in the room while you're continuing to work on your life. At the same time, there are people in the lawyer profession who are not honoring the law in which they allegedly agreed into, which gives them the right and the freedom and the privilege to do pro bono work. Of course, everyone has to make a living. Of course, driving those fancy automobiles like BMWs and Mercedes-Benz, etc., is important to those people. It's a position of status. It's a I made it. I made it through that expensive school. I paid off all my debts. I am free and clear in my life, and I am living large and in life. But they too have to produce clients. The most loyal clients in the world often come from the people who are of the humblest of means, who literally grow themselves out of humility into a position of power and posture in the world. They can remember the tough times. They can remember the starvation. They can remember the crap jobs or the ones they didn't feel that were right for their soul's fit, is what I mean. It wasn't that serving in a restaurant was bad. It didn't feed their soul. And in life, we have plenty of actors who went through that position, unless they were a childhood star, like some of our favorites who are still, thankfully, online, on television, doing their thing, but they've gone on to live a life. They're married. They have children. They are still doing their shtick, their gift of talent, of acting, of remembering lines, which takes a brilliant mind to produce in a lot of ways, and the freedom sometimes to monkey a line and still allow it to be played is also good. In life, we have moments of time to help someone, but the most important help that a person who's in struggle needs is not just a listening ear of some ridiculous therapist, but really a listening friend to say, okay, let's make a strategic plan. This is where you are now. This is where you'd like to go. Let's talk about the action steps that you need to individually produce to create your life the way you want it. Instead, we have organizations, we have loving churches that produce these food kitchens, and they might produce a meal once a week, but we have monsters who will remove that right for the person to get a meal. And then we have starvation set in, which impacts the mind, and then we have other things that imply that maybe they're not good enough to fit in society and in the world. We have wonderful restaurants that don't bother to open their extra doors, which makes it not only difficult for employees, but also for people who don't realize that the other door is open. They lose all sorts of clients because of the laziness of their management staff, but I only say that because I have now witnessed at least 6 people trying to get into the local Panera where I'm seated outside, trying to finish up some things for my life before I go to my next appointment time. And literally, they have still failed after several hours of being open to unlock a door that goes to their patio so that people can go in and out freely to the lavatory, to get food, to buy more food, to talk to others, to socially network. We seem to have forgotten how important it is to network in the land. We have these ridiculous retail employees who are barely making it themselves, not recognizing that a man who's impoverished needs to be able to socialize appropriately, constructively, professionally with people who are already employed. These community places, such as the Paneras, such as the Starbucks of the world, such as the old-time social clubs, and certain types of cyber cafe restaurants are literally geared and set up to allowing people to have that opportunity to network. I just came across another shared sort of cyberland space where it's a co-working space, and openly I'd love to go, but sometimes these co-working spaces have prices that are so high that a person who is trying to struggle out of a low-wage job into a higher-wage job doesn't have the possibility of meeting people who are really doing well and have a way to teach them and share with them information and insight that would allow them to move forward. The problem is not the laziness of the individual. The problem is sometimes the finances to do it, but also it's the unwillingness of people in success to share information of how they became successful. I don't know why that is. I think it's a fear of someone taking away their opportunities, but there's no way that's possible because every human being in the land is unique. The Lord makes unique souls for every life. There's always some monster in a family. There's always some methodology that someone thinks is better for another person's life, but it's really not, because it doesn't take into account at all who that human being is in the land and in God's house. You see, in God's house, they produce all sorts of people. In God's house, there are many rooms is a common Bible verse commonly discussed, often underlooked, and not preached enough about in our churches and our synagogues and our Kabbalah centers across the land. I think Kabbalah does a better job of it, but openly they also talk about a lot of mysticism and things that have been forgotten in Christian homes and literally forgotten in what is said very clearly in our loving Lord's Bible. For those of us who read it, for those of us who are open to the other translations of the Lord's Word, such as the Quran or the Tales of Confucius or Mencius or any of the Asian followers that came after the time of Christ, we have to realize that every soul needs a different type of language to feel whole. And in life, when we do these types of work, when we try to go and evangelize communities, we must recognize that they may already have a God that they believe in that is our same God. There is only one true God across the entire universe, and anyone who's a Christian who likes to say, well, I don't know who your God is not talking in the correct way. The truth is, there is a wonderful book by a great pastor called Counterfeit Gods, and that literally is the vices of our world, such as technology and libations and other things that take people away from human kindness and take people away from human relationships that make all the difference in the world for people's lives. The reason that homelessness still exists is several reasons. That we are putting way too much money in things that sit empty. We're putting way too much money in electricity in buildings at night that don't need to be electrified. Those funds could easily be redirected into creating intelligent, small communities of houses for people who are getting out of struggle, that have educational programs on how to keep moving forward and moving up in life. We also need to produce companies that are loving enough to change the way they pay people, to stop trying to honor people based on what they think they're worth in their hourly wage, but starting to say, what does it take to create a healthy life so that the land becomes more peaceful, so that people will have less jealousy, so that people will be less in strife, so that people can be 100% focused on producing a wonderful performance for that organization. And you do that by making sure people are well fed, that they have good transportation, that our roads are safe to transgress, because how many tires are killed because of the debris in the road, because there is no loving law enforcement person who gets out of their vehicle to walk the roads, because most of them are not in shape enough, but to literally clean up the mess on the sidelines of bridges and other places where things literally do fall off our automobiles. We also have to produce better prepared mechanics who don't lie, steal, and cheat people out of their life savings in a vehicle. We have to teach that honesty is the best policy. We have to teach that love is the answer to all problems. And we have to teach and preach that the U.S. Constitution is there for a reason. It protects our human rights and dignities in this land. It protects our right to people. It protects our right to relationships. It protects our right to assembly. It protects our rights to worship. It protects our rights to property. It protects our rights to our possessions. It protects our rights to say things we feel, but also be accountable for what we say. It protects our rights in every single way as a unique individual in this land. But it does not give away the rights of other people to respond in a loving and kind way, to say, gosh, I can see your point of view, but you know what? I have a different point of view, and that's okay. We reduce hate and strife in the world if we insist that people do not have to agree. They can agree to disagree, but even that saying has become sort of a joke amongst people. There is only one loving Mother and Father God is absolute truth across the world. There is a loving Lord Jesus that came after is true. That he had a wife and liaison is also true, but we have lost the historic records, not at all, that we don't talk enough about the truth of relationships and how the world works. Every human being has a triad. That triad are the two people that most significantly, in addition to your own life, change your life force for the better. They raise you up, they lift you up, they challenge you, and you are moved to change because of having met them. On top of that, we are like Jesus in that we need our tribe of 12. That tribe of 12 are our professional contacts that we work with, perhaps in a team, to do several things. We buy from them, we sell to them, we have strategic, profitable partnerships with them, we work with them in a team in multi-level marketing, which is not, and I say this, I repeat again, is not a pyramid scheme. The morons who say that don't have one clue of how wealth is wielded in this world. They have not read Cash Flow Quadrants. They have not understood Rich Dad Poor Dad as a book, and they don't get how money is profited in this land. In life, the only way to profit is through service of people, and we must teach community service. We must teach cleaning up the environment. We must teach the skills that families fail to produce in their own homes because of their own lies to themselves about what is and isn't their right to do with a child. Most parents in this land do not take the time to read a book on parenting. It's unbelievable to me. We've had 60, 70 years now of research into childhood development, and yet people somehow are able to leave a hospital without a book of what to expect when you're expecting in terms of their preparation for pregnancy, but they also don't get a book of these are the years that are most important, ages 0 to 5, and that's openly been proven. Hospitals should be sending those books home in their loving care packages because, after all, that family is paying $10,000 probably to have that birth. How dare them not send them with a book on the stages of childhood life? 3 different books, one for the toddler years, one for the elementary years, and one for the teenage to college years. How rough would that be for them to produce in a loving way that not only promotes the hospital, but promotes life, liberty, and the pursuit of freedom, justice, and love in this land? You see, we're failing our people through lack of educational opportunities that are so easy to put forth. We are failing people because they can sit literally on the side of the road starving and no secret stranger comes by and says, looks like you need a $5 bill to get a meal. Here you go. It's my honor and privilege to make sure that you eat today. Please get something healthy so that your mind works well, so that when you're ready to get that job, you will be able to do so with a clear conscience and a good-formed mind. We are not talking enough on the talk shows about how to be a healthy, mindful person. We talk all the time about how to prevent disease on Dr. Oz and all these other things, but we don't talk enough about the constitutional rights of the freedom of our personhood and our body, that no human being has the right to touch us at all without our permission. We have people who come up and try and touch our arms and touch our back, and you just want to smack them because they're total strangers to you, and they've just violated your personal space. But we don't have any way of teaching students how to teach people not to do that. I literally would like to haul off and hit a man yesterday who violated my private talk with a woman who was just about to feed me with his little dump of his emotional baggage, and openly. Then he violated my physical space a little later, seeing me outside the other side of his facility, and thought he'd come out and put his hands on me. And I literally, if my hands were not holding on to something, I would have decked him. I didn't know that man from Adam. I thought he was soliciting me for something that was not appropriate. He alluded to the fact that he allegedly had a wife, but I didn't see any wedding ring proving that fact, and frankly, I didn't like it at all. He kept continuing on his little tirade, and I'm like, I'm not your therapist or your shrink. Go talk to your pastor about this problem you're having with your neighbor, but for God's sakes, don't tell everybody else and not go talk to the man directly. He should have talked to that man immediately, not told everyone else and a total stranger like myself. I have no more regard for his shop, even though I like the stuff they sell. The reality is I may or may not go back there just because I don't want to deal with that man. People have the right to make that choice. But shop owners are foolish today if they think money grows on trees and that their shop will always be a money maker if they piss on people with their emotional baggage. Now, it sounds like I'm getting off topic, but I'm really not. What I'm talking about is that people have to develop relationships slowly over time. And when a person impacts a soul, they do it so deeply, so profoundly, so amazingly that their life is never the same. I've had 3 women in my life, possibly 4, that did that for me. My college roommate was my first love, and it lasted a long time. 4 years was long enough at that time. Then my significant other, my spouse, of literally more than 10, and I'll say that out of protection of our rights to our story. Then came into my life, along the tail end of that relationship, the most amazing woman off a prayer I prayed to the Lord. I have never been the same since meeting her. My heart is never going to be the same, and literally she fills my soul from every corner that exists within me, that I love that woman. On top of that came in a soulmate for me. She literally told me we were soulmates, and she was a married woman, and she could teach me so much in the few moments of time that we were together. She would listen to me so well, and then she'd give me the most brilliant response that I just was floored. And I miss that caring woman in my life. After that, I've had one little sweet little 20-something come into my life, but people ruined that opportunity for just a good friendship between an old man and a young woman. I'd like to help her market her honey into places, every place I've seen the opportunity for it, but she's not open, perhaps, or she's not mature enough, I don't know, but frankly, that relationship was too short-lived. I met another loving woman after that named Angela, who was allegedly going to give me a haircut, and the Lord put her on my path for lots of reasons I already learned, but she failed to continue that opportunity. Beyond that, a woman yesterday named Rosalind did a loving thing for me, and I hopefully paid her back as much as I could in kind for her care. But these are the moments of our life that a man remembers. These are the moments of a life that are supposed to be remembered. These are the moments of a life that people really made a relationship. The people that play one-upsmanship, the people that are always insecure, the people that are unwilling to change are the people that drag our country down. We need change in the presidency. We need change from the pulpit. We need change to go back to a loving nation that preaches and teaches. Reach out and touch someone, meaning touch their soul for the better. Don't physically put your hands on them. And in life, we have moments of time to prove who we are to God. Whether you believe in God or not, you will go home to somewhere when you die. The only question is where you will go, and if you've been violent or vile or attacking people in the night without their knowledge, without their permission, you will go to hell. There is no way out of that place for you. You have violated the Lord's highest rule, which is He is Lord of all, not you. In moments of time of pastoring, I have to be bold, I have to be blunt, I sometimes swear because the world does. The world of men swears a lot, more than it does around women. And openly, we only let a few expletives slip in either language, in my case, in front of women when we feel it's a safe place. And I met a loving woman yesterday who said, when people look away to talk, it's because they feel safe with that person. To be honest and true is what she was alluding to. And I really loved her for that statement because I was having a hard time reading her soul. But she was just one of those hard-to-read people. But she was providing me a brilliant reading in return after I gave her one, and she was really quite truthful in what she said. And now I know why the Lord said talk to her as I walked down the street, and she was loving and kind enough to talk back. And we produced a conversation that lasted a few hours, but it meant a lot to my soul. What about you? Who's in your life doing something? Who's in your life keeping promises? I stood in front of so many pastors that promised they'd look into helping me with getting a pair of pants. And here we are months later, and I still am in the same pants, falling down because I've lost 16 inches off my waist. Not from homelessness, not from starvation, just because I followed the Lord's plan for my life. To lose weight, to get in shape for the one I love, and to be all I can be in the political scheme of life. In life, we have moments of time to be something for someone. The next time you get that small voice of inkling of do something loving and kind for someone, by all means do it, because that is the angel of your life, the angels around your life, speaking on behalf of the Lord, who sends them to guide you, to mentor you, to grow you into a loving human being, which is the whole plan of Jesus Christ's plan for our lives. At this moment in time, I'm going to wrap up this Magic and Mayhem broadcast and audiocast saying, if you like what you hear, like it, share it, send it on, because we need more love in the land. And when people talk about that, they sort of mock it, and it's ridiculous. People need help in this world to become the most prosperous, productive, performing, and loving people they can, and they can only do that through relationships with others. Thanks for listening.